Wonderful, thank you. On behalf of the BC First Nations Energy and Mining Council, we would like to welcome you to part 2 of the Navigating Energy Programs in Remote Communities. My name is Tricia Thomas and my ancestral name is Lachalowitz Tanap. It comes from Layaxin. It's a war chief's name, which also means good speaker. I am a member of Halalt Nation, where I'm calling in from today, which is located in the Hulkaminam territory around Chemainus on Vancouver Island. As Crystal's not well, I will be facilitating today's session with the awesome support of Sarah Ozak. So Sarah, do you mind quickly introducing yourself?
Sure. Good morning or good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Sarah Ozak with First Nations Energy and Mining Council, and I have the privilege of mentoring Crystal in her role, who's coordinated and pulled together this specific session on remote communities. And we have a great turnout. So Crystal, kudos on getting the word out there. And I hope this information session is of value to everyone. And thanks for Tricia. Tricia's a recent and new member to our team at the FNEMC, and hopefully you'll see more of her in the months to come too. Thanks, everyone.
Excellent. Thank you, Sarah. We also have some great partners and presenters joining us today, and I'd like to call on them quickly to introduce themselves to the group. So I will start with Phil from Ecotrust. Are you there?
Hello, yes, ma'am. I'll turn on my video too, just for a moment. Hey everyone, my name is Phil Climey. I'm calling in from Comox territory, and I'm with Ecotrust Canada, and myself and Joe Thwaites will be just providing a bit of a presentation of sort of who we are and what we do in a few minutes.
Excellent, thanks Phil. So is Jordan here as well?
This is Joe. So I'll be presenting with Phil.
Okay.
Calling in from Coast Salish territory. I'm with Coefficient Building Science, so I'll be talking more to the energy advisor side of things.
Wonderful. Thanks, Joe. And then we have Diva from Coefficient.
Yes, thanks for having me. David with Coefficient here. Joe will be presenting here today, but if there are any questions that I can answer, I'm happy to.
Wonderful. Thanks, Deva. Sarah from the New Relationship Trust.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sarah Powell from New Relationship Trust. I'm a member of the Tack River Tlingit First Nation, but calling in today from the traditional territories of the Clady Tenay First Nation. And yeah, super excited to be here. Thanks so much for inviting us.
Excellent. Thanks, Sarah. And then we have Selena from New Relationship Trust.
Hello, everyone. I'm Selena from the Tsleil-Waututh Nation, and I work with Sarah on the clean energy initiatives here at the New Relationship Trust, and I'm calling from my home territory in Tsleil-Waututh Nation. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Selena. And then we have Shaheen from Coast Funds. Are you with us? Oh, does anybody see him in the space here?
Shaheen's not on here. I can send her a note, and if not, if she can't make it, we'll adapt.
Yeah,
no
sounds good. Okay, so we also have Sean Brennan. Please correct me if I'm wrong, from Tll Yahda Energy.
No, that's right. Hi, everybody. Sean Brennan. I'm with the Haida Nation, calling in from Haida Gwaii, my traditional territory here. As she mentioned, I'm with Tll Yahda Energy. I'm the implementation manager there and also the energy coordinator for my nation.
All right, Hawa, thank you. Did I forget anybody? Excellent. Okay, so I'm going to move on and thank you all for being here. So the last information session focused on the demand side. But there was questions from the remote community. So we'll be having this session today that will be focusing on the unique funding opportunities that are being provided to remote First Nations communities and to discuss priorities and areas for improvement. We'll also discuss how some best practices could be applied to grid connected communities as well. So to all First Nations, remote or not, this information session is an opportunity to gain information and possibly connect with some partners that will heighten your energy efficiency efforts. So yes, thank you for being here. And the presentations that we'll have will share a success story of a nation on how they accessed funds and what it was like throughout the project. We also broke it up into the demand side management to the supply side management with the government partners, focused on how the remote communities funding is being approached differently. And lastly, how the federal and provincial governments are working together and how that differs from grid connected First Nations. So just to go over what to expect for this session, first of all, it's very casual. I'll get Crystal just to pop up the agenda for today. So we started off with our welcome and introductions, and then we have our special presentations by Ecotrust Coefficient, followed by Tll Yahda Energy. Sarah, do you mind going over the other agenda items?
Sure, yeah. So for shared experience, really just looking to our friends and colleagues at the New Relationship Trust to give a bit of an overview of their program. And from the perspective of someone who works with some of the remote First Nations, Haida Nation and Sean Brennan in particular, there is a lot to be learned from how the remote community program is operating differently from the grid connected programs, and just trying to pull out and have discussion on maybe what those lessons learned could be to help inform and improve other government funded programs that are associated with clean energy and energy efficiency. And then if Shaheen's not available to help speak to that, we can adapt there and I can chime in too where needed. And then we also have partners from in Ministry of Energy, Mines and Low Carbon Innovation on the line. And as Tricia said, taking a casual approach here, feel free to speak up or add anything or ask any questions, and you might be pointed to as well. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. And utilize the chat as well. So normally these sessions are only for scheduled for 1 hour, but we will try to wrap the formal agenda up by 2:30. But then for those who would like to stay on longer to continue with questions and discussion, you are more than welcome to do so. At this time, I would like to pass it off to Ecotrust and Coefficient so you can present to the group around the demand side management. Crystal, do they have sharing capabilities?
Yeah, they should.
Okay, wonderful.
So it just popped up. It says host is, it's not enabled, the screen share.
Okay, who's going to be sharing? Is it you, Joe?
Yeah, me, Phil Klein.
Phil.
Okay. Excellent.
Okay, you should have access now.
Perfect. And so once you finish your presentation, would you like to open it up for some questions?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be great. And so, yeah, unfortunately, too, I'm gonna have to pop off after the presentation, but yeah, after the presentation and a few minutes of questions, I think would be great.
Okay, thank you, Phil. Off to you.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you. So, are you able to see this presentation full screen?
Yes, looks good.
Awesome. Okay, so yeah, Joe and I are going to be presenting today, and we thought we would keep it short, as you mentioned, Trissa, and then open up for conversation and questions. And in fact, there's so many familiar faces and names, I guess, on the call right now that it's right approach to just be brief in our overview and then open it up to questions, and especially given your intro on yeah, just the questions and opportunities around fundraising and alignment across governments and initiatives. I think that's there's some really valuable conversations to be had there. So we want to make sure there's time for that for sure. But for those of you who don't know me or haven't met, my name is Phil Klein. I'm calling in from Comox territory on Vancouver Island. And I work with Ecotrust Canada. Ecotrust is a nonprofit organization that works mainly with rural remote communities in BC, but it works in other places too, on a number of different sort of areas. There's like fishery and housing and forestry, and the team that I work on is energy and energy efficiency. So going to be sharing a little bit about the overview of kind of the work and the supporting role that we play in working with nations on demand side management. But I'll pass it over to Joe to introduce himself before that.
Great, thanks, Phil, and appreciate the invitation to be here today to speak to the group. So thank you for that. So my name is Joe Thwaites. I'm the Director of Community Projects for Coefficient Building Science. Coefficient is an organization that does energy analysis on buildings and works across Canada. My personal background, I've got over 30 years experience in renewable energy and energy efficiency, working both across Canada and internationally. So currently my work is focused on supporting communities with their energy goals. You know, I've come to over the years to learn that the more I understand about what the communities are looking for, what their goals are, the more that I can be of assistance to them. So while I'm going to be doing, my role here today is to do some talking, I really look forward to a chance to sit with folks and hear from them directly and hear from them on this call. But I certainly enjoy sitting with folks and learning from them directly what their community goals are. So that's what I'd love to do today.
So a little bit about what we do, which I think to sum it up is really just sort of like to whatever extent is needed and valuable, working with nations to improve energy efficiency of their housing stock. Most of the work that we do with our partners at the moment is on reserve, just because of the funding opportunities and needs that exist in that area. But yeah, like above and beyond, you know, reducing energy consumption and cost is of course so important, and then improving comfort and health and safety and resilience of homes is really the ultimate goal of the work. And in terms of the process, it's certainly different for every nation and for every situation, but you know, mostly it starts off with identifying the biggest priorities, maybe some of the biggest challenges for the housing stock in that nation, and then from there doing some sort of information gathering that can help really to contribute to fundraising, which we can chat about. I have a slide on that a little bit later. There can, you know, as we know, there are a number of different options, and sort of depending on the different needs and opportunities in each nation, you know, some might make more sense than others. So that's a lot of the work that Ecotrust does to just help on that side of things. And then once those funds are raised, again, to whatever extent is helpful, just support the project to move forward. And obviously, often that involves sort of budgeting and funder management and stuff like that. Yeah, so currently we're working in a number of different areas, a number of different nations, mostly along the coast right now, but that doesn't, you know, that isn't specific intention. There's three sort of programs we're working on at the moment. One is energy advisor training. So that's Joe and Deva, they're professional energy advisors. And the idea there is being able to support local members to actually become trained energy advisors, especially in rural and remote contexts. That's so important when you're not having to rely on folks coming in far away. And Joe can speak more to that in a few slides. Energy efficiency upgrades. So a lot of heat pumps at the moment, especially in the coastal region, but work beyond that as well, including like air sealing and ventilation and insulation upgrades and things like that. And then lastly, heat pump technician training. So in one of the projects we've been working with for a while with the Hill Shift Nation, not just installing the new equipment, but also training and passing on skills and expertise to, maintain, repair, upgrade, and operate the systems is an important piece of the puzzle. And so this slide, I'll be quick on it again. It might just summarize sort of the reason why we're here today, the challenges and opportunities around, fundraising and fundraising to both improve the energy equipment in homes, to improve the envelope for the structure of homes, and then also funding to build skills and development to basically like shift towards a greener, cleaner, more resilient economy in rural and remote areas. So I think I'll pass it off there. That's kind of the broad overview, and then Joe will talk a little bit about the energy assessment portion, which is an important part of that process.
Great, thanks, Phil. So the energy assessments can play a core role in supporting projects around energy efficiency improvements in communities. So for folks, I'm going to apologies for folks who are familiar with the program. I'm going to kind of start at a base level for the folks that may be unfamiliar with it. So registered energy advisors are trained and educated in both the building science and energy use of buildings. And so what we really do is we do a detailed review of each house in advance of the energy improvement being done, the upgrade being done to the house. And really we look at it through three ways. We look at a house sort of through three ways. So one, the name is energy advisor, or the work we're doing is energy assessment. So certainly energy efficiency is one of the lenses through which we look at what possible upgrades or improvements to a home could be done. But another lens that we look at it through is through resident comfort. And so, the comfort, how comfortable a home is matters critically, as well as we look at it through the lens of having a healthy indoor environment. So those three can be quite interrelated, but we sort of look at all three and view them all rather than look at it just from a straight energy efficiency numbers point of view. And so we do that by really looking at the house, looking at people's home as a system. It's an interconnection of the ventilation system, the heating system, the windows, and sort of how all the different elements work together, combined with occupancy, number of people, and people's habits in the home. And so how all that works together to create a healthy, comfortable, affordable place for people to live. So that's sort of the overall the service that we're trying to provide. Our role is to be an impartial information provider for people about the home energy performance. We're not a contractor. We don't do installation of equipment or installation. We don't recommend specific installers or specific equipment. We're there to give good general information about what things will have what kinds of improvements, what measures would have what kinds of improvements on people's houses. And it's really important to recognize in that work that each individual home will have an individual path towards improvement. Some houses, it might be that they're quite drafty, and that really focusing on draft proofing a house is a major thing. Others may have weak levels of insulation in the attic, etc. So ventilation can be another area that's quite important to improve. So we give individual house by house assessments and recommendations. And so the goal of that is to help individual residents and communities as a whole understand and prioritize what the home upgrades that they might want to put in are. So our job is to give the information so that people can, with good information, make a path forward on which things to do first and which things to do later, etc. And then on a very practical basis, the work that we do is supported by Natural Resources Canada, who make available grants of up to $5,600 per home for these energy efficiency, for qualifying energy efficiency upgrades. So Natural Resources Canada, NRCan, has a program, the Greener Homes program, through which we do a lot of this work. Next slide, Phil. Thank you. And so, as I say, the goal is healthy, comfortable, cost-effective homes to live in. And the tool we have for that is what's called the EnerGuide rating system. So I wanted to give you just a kind of a look at what the reports that we work with and that we provide, what they look like and what kinds of things are in them. So the EnerGuide rating system for the home, for folks who have maybe recently purchased a fridge or a stove or an appliance, you may have seen an EnerGuide rating for those appliances. And so this is an analogy, an EnerGuide rating system for the house. And so its goal is to give, you'll see in the top right corner, a rating in this case of 178 for this example report. So that's that's the number of gigajoules, the amount of energy that the house uses per year. And this rating, like EnerGuide ratings on appliances, like an old mile per gallon rating on a car, is a typical energy use by a typical family and typical year, but it is specific to that geography. So we use the local weather station, and it's specific to that house construction. And so that's developed by way of the detailed information that we gather in each house. So the energy advisor will go in, we'll assess insulation levels in the walls, we'll go into attics, we'll go into crawl spaces, we'll assess the windows, we'll assess the ventilation, the heating and the hot water. So detailed review of what's on site. It may take about 2 hours or so per house. And then put that information into a computer model that generates what the EnerGuide rating for that house would be on an annual basis. That's for heating, cooling if there is air conditioning, hot water, and electricity for lights and appliances. So the overall energy use, what that house could be expected to be. And then without getting into all the details, I'll just draw your attention to the bottom where there's an EnerGuide rating and a series of numbers of 178, 89, 66, and 0 on the bottom left corner of it. So 178 is, the report will indicate, is what, in this case, this example house would use per year. But by comparison, it gives a few other numbers. So if the same house in the same location was built to the current energy code, its number would be 89. So they use the phrase a typical new house. So if it was a brand new house with current expectations for insulation, etc., it wouldn't be 178 gigajoules per year, it would be 89. And apologies if this is getting a little number heavy for folks. I happen to enjoy numbers, but I know not everybody is bent that way. But it is, a typical house in this example would use about half the energy of what this example house uses. And then the third number, which is a fairly useful number for planning purposes, is we model the house for potential upgrades, for possibly new insulation, adding a heat pump instead of an oil furnace, et cetera, And then the number 66 represents if those various upgrades were done, how much energy would the house use on an annual basis? So, at that point, we're getting down close to a third or 40% of what the house currently is using. And then it identifies that if you were to have renewable energy systems on a house that balance that all off, the very best energy performance under the EnerGuide rating system is a rating of 0 gigajoules a year, where that would be considered a net zero house, where it supplies as much energy as it consumes. I see a hand raised, and I'm happy to take questions now, or if the organizers prefer, we can defer questions to the end.
Well, I'll leave it up to you, Joe. I know that we mentioned afterwards, but yes, feel
I'm
free.
a bit of a nonconformist, so if someone's got a question now, I'll take it as
Go for it.
on the time that we're doing it. So
Yeah, Sarah says go for it.
good.
Thanks, Joe. It's Gil Davis from West Moberly First Nations. My question about this is, when we're talking about northern and rural communities where heat pumps are not an option for us right now, I'm just wondering about this EnerGuide rating and that potential to be able to take it up. That might work on a home in Vancouver area or on the island, but it's not necessarily going to mean that that is going to be a realizable goal or objective here in the north, where a heat pump isn't a performance factor that's going to be viable for us at this time.
Yeah, thanks for that question. Happy to give you some insights into that. So the EnerGuide rating system is, I'll use the phrase technology agnostic. It doesn't, it will rank, it will give a review of whatever technology is in place. So it's not tied specifically to heat pumps. So if we were to do a project in your community and we were assessing homes there, we would review what's currently in place, and there's a variety of on the the heating appliance, the mechanical systems. There's a variety of options available that could be an improvement over what you have now. So I don't know what you have now, but if in places where there's conventional natural gas furnaces or propane furnaces or oil, certainly going to a high efficiency is one measure that's better. That said, there are options for heat pumps to consider, which may not be air source heat pumps, though they have been put in some very cold climates. But ground source heat pumps can be an option. So, I'm happy. So in general, the EnerGuide rating system is designed for use across Canada, regardless of what technologies are being used. And then each specific house in each specific location would have a different mix of technologies for improvement. Is that helpful, Gil?
It is to a certain context, yes. It gives me a better idea of the other options that you guys do talk about. I just happen to know from experience on other projects in our region where even the ground heat source pumps have not worked out, and they've reverted back to natural gas or other heat sources such as electricity and whatnot, just because of the unreliability. And unfortunately, in our area, we don't have any good geothermal sources close to our community that are going to be a viable option for us. So nice to know that those are taken into consideration. But like I said, it just seems to be that's technology available Canada-wide, and I know not all the technologies are going to work in all locations. So it's hard to take this number that, yeah, I understand the perspective, but it may not be practicable in our remote or northern communities. Is just my one challenge I have with it. I know some of our homes have had this EnerGuide rating, and I think the best that we can do is in the 70 range on the homes in our community as prospective potential ratings kind of thing. So just a question I wanted to ask and get a little better understanding about this from a broader perspective. Thanks.
Good. Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, and certainly, like, the point you're making is applicable to other communities as well, which is what's a great solution in one community may not be appropriate in another community, and it's a very much an individual pathway that needs to be generated, right? So I'm a big fan of specifically designed good solutions as opposed to a solution that on average is good, because something that's on average may not be at all helpful in any one specific case, if that makes sense. So Phil, I think that's all I wanted to say on this slide. I think it's back to you for the next one.
Sorry, I'm muting. Yeah, sounds good. So I just saw one question asking about, I think, if Joe or energy advisors can support with RFPs for seeking out contractors and for work to be completed. And I think basically no was the answer, and that sort of relates back to the energy advisors' sort of impartial assessment of the home from basically an energy perspective alone. But for example, supporting on a request for proposal process is something that Ecotrust Canada does on that sort of project management assistance side of things. So that's sort of like one component of, basically like the role that we in some cases do play with the partners that we work with. And yeah, so this slide that's up here, this is the last one that we have, and it might just be priming the whole rest of the meeting. It sounds like in a sense. But as you can see, this is probably not, all that are currently available, but there are a number of funding sources available for lots of different energy upgrades, especially in on-reserve homes at the moment. And I think as Crystal and Sarah were alluding to, sort of puzzling that together at times can be challenging, but when it can be done, and if there's opportunities for greater alignment in certain cases, it can result in full funding for energy upgrades to homes and for training and skills development for local membership. So this is definitely a big piece that Ecotrust plays in some of our projects. And so yeah, just wanted to put that there and sort of, I guess connected to Joe and Gil's conversation there, like different funders are going to have different priorities and different benefits, for different upgrades and different initiatives in nations. So it's just I guess an exercise of figuring out the best approach for each project, for each home, to match all the money that's available. So anyways, I can hang around for a couple minutes, and I do apologize that I have to take off. But if anyone has any questions about Ecotrust or our role or whatever, please just send me an email whenever you can. But yeah, I can stick around for a few questions if there are some.
Wonderful. Thank you, Phil and Joe. Gil, go right ahead.
Yeah, I know when I looked into the Greener Home program and the need for the EnerGuide assessments within 6 months of the project and then after the project, one of the shortfalls Canada-wide was the accessibility to EnerGuide assessors. I wonder how do you have any updates on that capacity Canada-wide, and whether that backlog of 300 or 500,000 applications for that Greener Homes program has been getting whittled down of late?
Yeah, I'll add part one to that and then pass it off to Joe for part two. But this is a bit of so in addition, so it's a great question and it's a huge challenge at the moment. And in addition to Natural Resources Canada rolling out that Greener Homes program, they also rolled out funding to support the training and certification of underrepresented folks in Canada in underserved communities to become trained energy advisors. So that's a little bit of what Ecotrust and Coefficient are working on at the moment. Those red stars there are where we're working with individuals from nations to become certified themselves. And there's definitely opportunities. So the funding that we have to train folks at the moment is close to it's full, I would say. There might be opportunity for one more, but there are other organizations, there are other training opportunities out there as well. So if that's an interest, so yeah, instead of needing to fly an energy advisor, from Vancouver up to West Moberly, you know, if there's an opportunity to train and certify someone locally, that's, you know, that's fantastic as well. So that's one small component of trying to address the what you mentioned, which is the massive backlog, which I'll let Joe speak to if he wants to.
Yeah, so certainly the program that we're doing with Ecotrust to train Indigenous energy advisors is coming along great. And you know, our approach, what we've done so far and found successful, is to come into a community, you know, not try to do one at a time in a remote community, but come into a community that has a broad program goal in place, and then assess, you know, a large swath or maybe all the houses in the community in one visit with, you know, a small group of people that of energy advisors that can go through. And so I would say that certainly at the beginning of the Greener Homes program that Natural Resources Canada announced, you know, they announced it before they had all the infrastructure in place to do it, I think is a very fair statement to make. So consequently, we were all, you know, surprised and delighted and overwhelmed by the response from people across Canada wanting to take advantage of the funding opportunity that the Greener Homes program represented. In the time since it's been, and so certainly there was a lack of energy advisors at the beginning. It's gotten a lot better now. We've gotten through the backlog, and energy advisors have increased in numbers. So we would be able to respond quickly to a community interested in having energy advisors come out now. So, you know, that's the challenge of a year ago is not what we have now. We're in a much better position to respond in a timely manner than I would say a year ago.
Thanks for that. That's good to know. Any ideas of how they're whittling down on that huge group of applicants, and whether, you know, because when you got that many applicants ahead of you, it's hard to, you want to be strategic in your timing to submit an application still and not be caught in that huge backlog and be waiting months or years to be able to implement that, right? Compared to, especially when you have to have that interguide assessment done 6 months before the retrofit is completed, right? So, you know, it's.
I'm going to invite my colleague Deva to jump in and say a little bit more than that. My understanding is there is not much of a backlog, but Deva is the one that has more conversations with Natural Resources Canada than myself. So Deva, could you jump in?
Yeah, that'd be great. It just helps with us for work planning and budgeting, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, happy to answer this question. It's a very good one. And I think Joe has mainly covered the points where there was a big backlog at the start, but now my understanding is that there's little to no backlog. Natural Resources Canada has spent a fair bit of time catching up to what was, I think, surprisingly good response to the program. As a service organization, we work directly with Natural Resources Canada on delivering the program. So we're part of meetings on an ongoing basis. So a community doesn't have to necessarily worry about some of the things that you mentioned, Gil, about timing your application. You know, there isn't a backlog or any significant barriers to any community, large or small, entering the program. And like Joe mentioned, there, you know, we have the capacity to help whichever communities at this point are looking to participate in the Canada Greener Homes grant program. So there, you know, we're happy to have a more in-depth conversation with you if you're interested about some of those details. But yeah, I hope that's helpful.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Deva. Are we finished with the presentation then, Joe and Phil? Excellent.
We are, yeah.
Okay, well, thank you both for your presentation and for Deva for jumping in to support the discussion. Deva, can you please drop your email into the chat just in case somebody would like to discuss further?
Will do. Thank you.
Perfect, thanks. And I also dropped Phil and Joe's email into the chat if anybody would like that. And I'm just wondering if we have the ability to, I wonder if we're going to be getting a copy of the presentations afterwards too, or we can leave that for a later discussion.
Yeah, no, for sure. I can send that over.
Okay, thank you, Phil. All right, wonderful. Okay, so thank you for your time again. And next, we have a success story around clean energy generation in Haida Gwaii that will be shared by Tll Yahda Energy. So Sean, I believe that we've shared the host with you.
Thank you.
Perfect. Feel free to get started anytime.
Okay, so I'm assuming you guys can see this. Oops.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just going to give a breakdown on our solar project and sort of the background of what brought us to where we are today. So Haida Gwaii means Islands of the People, Indigenous territory that's managed and protected by the Haida Nation. We have around 4,200 people here, and we burn around 10,000 liters of diesel annually on 2 different grids. So we have a north grid and a southern grid. The north grid is 100% diesel. The south grid is 40% diesel and 60% hydro dam. And as you can see by these numbers, we do consume quite a bit of energy on both grids. So compared to the rest of Canada and compared to the rest of BC, Haida Gwaii burns quite a bit of diesel. We burn more than the rest of BC combined, and we're also comparable to several provinces there, like Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba, mostly because they burn natural gas and that sort of thing, but we still burn more diesel than they do. So this is just a graph that talks about the last few years and how there's been a slight increase in diesel use on Haida Gwaii. And 5 years ago, we had a energy symposium here where all of our elected leadership got together, and they talked about how the island's vision of getting off of diesel produced electricity. We set an ambitious target of 2023. And since then, this project is the main thing that's come out of that. But we also have another symposium coming up next month, where we're going to do like another re-signing of this declaration with a goal towards 2030. So part of what this presentation is about is sort of like the success story of this project on Haida Gwaii, and I think a major part of that success is creating this partnership, actually. So the 2 logos on either side, there's Old Masset Band Council and Skidegate Band Council, and in the middle is the Council of the Haida Nation. The 2 bands have been working together previously for about 5 years, or no, maybe a bit less than that, but in 2021, they invited the Council of Haida Nation to join. Once that partnership was sort of solidified between the 3 parties, things started happening a lot more faster, and the collaboration started to gain attention and momentum, and people started to take this project a lot more seriously. Basically, what we said was any kind of energy production that's happening on Haida Gwaii is going to go through this new company, where it's saying that we all agreed on what these projects are going to be. There's no competition between any of the bands. or any of the different parties. We're committed to working together in a coordinated approach to getting off of diesel on Haida Gwaii. And yeah, so basically creating a partnership, creating opportunities, and gathered some major attention. Through that partnership, we identified the first project would be the solar project in the north. So this is an aerial overview of the Masset Airport. With that blue rectangle to the left, representing the footprint of the solar farm. So it'll be a 2 megawatt project with a battery that's included with that. Originally, it was a part of our application and the project, but as the project developed, BC Hydro had offered to take over the development and accommodation of that battery, I guess. There was a desire by them to have that battery within their control yard so that they could control when and how the solar farm interacted with the diesel generator. Just talked about that a bit. So then in April of 2021, we did our geotechnical studies. This is a picture of Kevin Brown. He's on my team here. And then that smaller picture is the archaeological monitoring that happened during that time. Our geotechnical came back very positive. And then last year we had our pile testing. All this came back very, very positive. The site that we chose is not sort of prone to liquefaction in the case of earthquakes and that sort of thing, which is what we were checking out. Whoops. And then in August of last year, the solar panels finally arrived. This was a huge day that made everything sort of reality. A lot of work leading up to that for sure. So far our system impact study has been complete. I always get questioned about why I put this picture in here, and it's just because that study is basically how we're going to connect the solar farm to this telephone pole. And then yeah, so our next sort of things that we have on the coming up is our path to 2030. Now I know that the presentation here said that it was going to be about how we got here, but I think a lot of that really just came from the collaboration that happened at that level between the three parties there, talking with different people within the BC government and BC Hydro, and sort of showing them that we are serious about getting off of diesel on Haida Gwaii, and that their targets line up with our targets, and that we should be working more collaboratively. And then yeah, so when I started, I had a team of, I guess, 4 people, all in different groups, and then coming together and then working collaboratively to do grants and sort of like combine resources. Really is what that did, and like through that we were able to really like collaborate and get a better picture of what we needed to do to get to 100% funded on the solar farm. I wasn't really like, I was pretty new when I first started this position in the field of energy. I've had tons of experience when it comes to Indigenous governance and that sort of thing, but when I seen that there was a shortfall of maybe like $4 million, I didn't really consider that we had an option of borrowing that. And a lot of that just came from us putting our nose to the grindstone and really applying for any opportunity that came along, showcasing our partnership, our collaboration, and our desire and passion of really needing to get off of diesel on Haida Gwaii really led to where we are today. And this continued sort of relationship between all of the Haida people here. I mean, it sounds like it's just something that's really easy to do, but I mean, historically, we were always like fighting around with different people all over the coast, and since colonization happened, we've really been into fighting with each other. And so getting this collaboration happening and sort of working together was huge for us even. And it really sort of shows in this project that's happening now that overcoming different differences and really collaborating to persevere to achieve something that we all know is right and that we're all quite passionate about, lends to sort of people wanting to support that all the time and be a part of something that's like really positive and up and coming, right? So I feel like a lot of that, like relationship building, a lot of that collaboration and really staying focused on this vision and goal is what's contributed to us getting to where we are today. But mostly, you know, I have a really great team that I work with, and I can't really praise them enough with all the work that we do collaboratively and individually for each person that's on this team too, right? So I think I'll just leave it there for now. And if you guys have any questions, I'm very open to answering anything.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sean, for sharing this wonderful story. I'm opening the floor now to any quick questions. I know that we're supposed to go till about 2:30, but we're open until 3, the space. So Sean, are you going to be sticking around with us to the end?
Yeah, I'll be here until 3.
Okay, that's wonderful. All right, so if you have any questions, please, by all means, post them in the chat. Sean has a lot of information to share. And Sarah, I'll pass it off to you to discuss how the federal and provincial governments are working together with remote First Nation communities. If you're there.
Okay, yeah, thanks, Trisha. I can go on video here.
Thank you.
So this lines up really well with Sean's closing remarks there on his presentation in terms of the collaboration that's been required. So really pleased to say that we have both partners from the New Relationship Trust on the call today, and then Jillian Treadwell from NRCan, who's also a very integral member to the Tll Yahda team, I would say. She's also joined us. So what I was hoping to do here is I'd really like to turn it over to Selena and Sarah to speak to the New Relationship Trust program. And from my perspective, from the FNEMC, having the ability to see these different funding opportunities, it does appear, and it does feel like when it comes to remote communities, that the province is really doing something different here. And I do think it's for the better. And so just want to provide some time and space to have New Relationship Trusts speak to their program and offer their perspective on how it's working. And then part of their program is a partnership with Coast Funds, and then have Shaheen introduce herself.
Great, thank you, Sarah. So hi everyone, like I mentioned, my name is also Sarah. There's a lot of Sarahs in the clean energy space, and I work with the New Relationship Trust and our Clean Energy Initiative. So we have 2 clean energy funding programs currently, the BC Indigenous Clean Energy Initiative, which is open to every nation in BC. And then we also have the still relatively new Community Energy Diesel Reduction Program, or CEDAR for short. This was launched just last year, like Sarah mentioned, in partnership with Coast Funds, responding to a call for responses that the province of BC put out in 2021. So we partner with both the province and Coast Funds to offer this new funding program. We received $29 million to provide in funding for clean energy and renewable projects in remote communities in BC. $3 million per year is set aside for energy efficiency and demand side management projects. And right now, the uniqueness about the program is that it's specifically targeted towards remote communities in BC. So we've identified 44 communities that are eligible for the program that are reliant on diesel for their electricity and heating generation in the province. And these 44 communities are eligible for our program. Now, because it has generally a smaller pool of applicants, we're able to offer a little bit more, we hope, in terms of other funding programs that maybe Shaheen will talk a little bit about, and that we can help applicants through our application process. Our goal in designing the entire funding program was to be as accessible and low barrier as possible. We know that many nations are already doing clean energy projects off the side of their desk already. So anything that we can do to assist them in receiving our own clean energy funding, we try to do. We also provide some pathfinding support in identifying potential other funding opportunities, as well as reviewing other applications to funders. We're currently in talks with other funders as well to kind of, again, streamline the application process. And so that nations aren't having to complete brand new applications every month for a different funding program when it's the same information. So yeah, I just really want to highlight that we serve the nations first in this program. We try to be very flexible. The projects, we can kind of work with the nations to make sure they're eligible for our program. So we currently have 3 streams. We have our community energy planning stream, where communities can apply for updates or to their current community energy plan, or brand new community energy plans as well. Then we have our demand side management energy efficiency stream, and that's for measures that we talked about a little bit earlier. And then we have a renewable energy generation stream, which is kind of anything else that reduces diesel in communities. So yeah, that is the program in a nutshell. I see that there's been some links dropped in the chat, so thanks so much for that. And if you have any other questions or further information you want to look at, feel free to check out our website, or you can email cedar@nrtf.ca. The email's on the website, and me and Selena would be happy to get back to you, but I'm also aware of time and I don't want to take up too much space. So Selena, do you have anything to add?
No, I think you definitely have said all there is. And yeah, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to email us or set up a call.
Yes, we're always happy to talk about that. And then just a quick plug, we have some other funding programs at NRT as well that we can, get you in contact with the correct people if it doesn't quite fit in the Cedar realm. So yeah, we'll leave it at that if there's any questions.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sarah and Selena. This is Trisha. Just pop that email address in the chat. Can you just check on it and confirm that I got it right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
I do have a quick question. Are you seeing, really the ideal uptake NRT with your new program, or, with what Crystal's put on here today, is there, even opportunity to increase that uptake, or is it kind of already maxed out? You've reached everyone. What are you thinking?
No, we haven't reached everyone. Like I mentioned, it is limited in that we have 44 communities, but we only funded 12 in our last intake, and we have a relationship established with a couple other communities. But no, we want to establish a relationship with every one of those 44 communities that is eligible for our program. So yeah, if you haven't already been talking to us, then I would definitely encourage you to reach out because there is more support and funding available.
Awesome, thank you. Since we're still on number 5 here, Trisha, I will connect this presentation to Shaheen. So as Sarah Powell mentioned, New Relationship Trust has a partnership with Coast Funds to help administer and offer the remote community funds. And where this, I think, is a very effective partnership is that I will let Shaheen introduce herself, but Shaheen's a trained engineer and really offers that technical mindset to support First Nations and the remote First Nations to work through the funding applications, to identify priorities, and it's just a very valuable resource. And I think the province and NRT went the right way here with this partnership. So with that, Shaheen, I'll turn it over to you to introduce your role.
Hi, everyone, and thank you, Sarah, for that kind introduction. It's nice to see some familiar faces and also faces that I haven't met yet. So to those who don't know me, I'm Shaheen. I work as a Sustainable Energy Manager at Coast Funds. And like Sarah just mentioned, I support the CEDAR program that's led by the NRT. But I've been asked to speak a bit today because before joining Coast Funds, I was a consultant working on renewable energy feasibility studies and technical due diligence reviews. And I think that this crisscross background of mine puts me in a unique position to help remote First Nation communities with their energy projects. And so I think that I'm able to support nations by lending a technical eye to projects. And I like to think of myself as a free consultant when I have the spare time to support that way. Of course, I can't do full-fledged feasibility reports, but I can do quick preliminary studies in software such as Homer or PVSys or Windographer and other software that you can feed load and resource data into to find out if further investigation for your project is worth it for a specific technology. So I can do that, and I can also review reports that you get from consultants. Sometimes I know that it can be a bit of a black box, so I can look at those and provide feedback from a technical perspective if that's useful to you. And it's work that I enjoy doing. So if you do need that support, I invite you to reach out to me. I'll pop my email in the chat. That's all for me. Thanks.
Excellent. Thank you, Shaheen. Okay, so I'm just reading the chat and wondering if anybody has any immediate questions for Shaheen right now. Okay, and Sarah, I think you had a question for Joe previously, but I've lost it in the chat. Oh, thank you for sharing your email address there, Shaheen. Are you still there, Sarah?
Sorry, yep, I am here. The question I had for Joe earlier. Oh, yes. So there is, as we know, there's so much information out there, but I'm a strong believer there's no dumb questions. So Joe, when you shared that, Ecotrust's role is not to recommend contractors, apologize for not remembering this, but I did at one point. Does the energy advisor then recommend contractors, or does the energy advisor or Ecotrust, can they support the First Nations with facilitating an RFP process? And Joe would want to hear your response, but I also know, BC Hydro can play a role too in recommending contractors also, I'm aware. So I know we're going back to the basics here, but there's so much out there. I just want to get clarity on that one.
Yeah, very good question. So yeah, so I'm with Coefficient. My colleague Phil, who's had to step off the call, is with Ecotrust. So Coefficient, we as energy advisors, part of our code of ethics and our responsibilities as registered energy advisors is to be impartial. So we can't recommend specific mechanical contractors or other contractors to do upgrades. And we can't recommend specific equipment models to do it. We can, of course, describe to you the kinds of equipment performance and that you should look for, and for heat pumps, certain performance characteristics and so on. And then there are lists of qualified contractors available. So the Home Performance Contractor Network is a provincially maintained list of contractors that have been approved, for example. That said, so we can support an RFP in terms of articulating performance requirements that you might be looking for in contractors, but we'd want to stay, our role would be to stay separate from picking the contractor. And that's because after the work is done, we would come back in and do an updated energy assessment of the work. So again, an independent look at the work that was done and the energy performance that one could expect from it. So we're distinct from that. If Phil was on the line, I'm sure he would say he would be able to articulate more about Ecotrust's role, but Ecotrust is more in a position where they can support, as project managers, the selection process for contractors and managing the contractors. And so I'd encourage you to reach out to Phil directly to sort of connect with him on specifically what he could do in a specific case. Is that helpful to your question?
Yeah, that's really helpful. And I see Seth saying, thanks so much for dropping that link into for the Home Performance Find a Contractor into the chat box there. That's really, really helpful. It's great to know that there's a list of qualified contractors out there. where, now that through Crystal and the First Nations Energy and Mining Council, I think there's a need and an opportunity, and maybe it's through AMA, to really start sharing, First Nations perspectives on some of those best practices associated with the contractors too, right? So completely understanding as an energy advisor to remain impartial, but I hope as we become more informed and through sessions like this, then in the future there could be an opportunity to share some best practices in regards to these contractors also.
Wonderful. And Leo put in the chat, I like Patrick's comment earlier about improving energy efficiencies on existing houses. Can we see a discussion presentation around this in a future Zoom invite? I have some ideas and questions around this. I definitely will be reaching out to Joe on specific projects we have. Excellent. Thanks, Leo. All right. Do we have any further questions or comments?
I see Patrick had asked about funding for the solar. I'm just going through the chat here, Tricia, to try to help you out. Patrick and Sean, you were having a dialogue there on the Clean Energy Business Fund. So the Clean Energy Business Fund does provide, it's under 500,000 is my understanding for clean energy projects. Whereas the New Relationship Trust funds that Selena and Sarah are leading, it's up to $2 million for projects that will generate clean power. So quite a significant difference there, just for everyone's information. And then the other part to the Clean Energy Business Fund is potential for revenue sharing on existing or new clean energy projects. So that's not happening so much lately, but back in the day when new IPPs were starting up, most of them run-of-the-river or hydro projects, there was an opportunity for First Nations to receive revenue sharing from the water and land rentals that the IPP producer would be paying the province for fees for that project. Because there's a bit of a standstill right now in clean energy projects and generation, new projects, that opportunity is not there so much, but it definitely should be one that should be opened up again. Okay. And Amy also offered BC Hydro doesn't recommend contractors. We're working with partners to increase the number of qualified contractors. Okay, thank you, Amy.
Sarah, we have Gil has his hand up raised
Go
here.
for it.
Yeah, excellent. Go ahead, Gil.
Yeah, I was wondering if any of the people that are on here today, one of the challenges I have, we have received partial funding for a residential solar power project in the community. But one of our challenges is being able to add storage capacity to those solar systems on the homes. And that is an ongoing challenge in trying to find funding. I was just wondering if anybody on the presenting or on this call today has any new information about new funding programs that would include battery storage for solar power projects.
Yeah, good question, Gil.
So Gil, is this for remote communities or non or both?
We consider ourselves remote, but
you're grid connected.
Consider us remote or northern, being here in northeastern BC and tied to the grid, right? So, but it is definitely a challenge for us because we have experienced a lot of blackouts with power outages and whatnot. So it would be really nice to be able to, the solar power program would just provide energy to the home while the grid is up and running. But if the grid goes down, we have no capacity to meet the energy needs of the home in the wintertime and keep these homes heated, as our primary heat source is electricity. So just looking for additional funding opportunities where storage capacity is now being funded for these types of projects.
Right. So there is one potential opportunity, and it's that NRCan SREP opportunity. It's potential because it is more geared towards utility. My understanding is more geared towards utility applications rather than community applications. But that's not to say you can't potentially partner with, you know, your service provider there. And I will drop the link into there. And I just want to say, Jillian, I don't want to put you on the spot, but we do have a partner here from NRCan. And Jillian, why don't you introduce yourself? I think that would be great because it is mostly remote community participants. And if you can do that, and then I'll put the SREP here in the chat. And then Jillian, if you have any more information in terms of how the SREP differs from the CERC applications and funding opportunity, that would be helpful too, but not necessary.
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Jillian. I work at Natural Resources Canada. I work on the Indigenous Off-Diesel Initiative and the CERC, so Clean Energy in Rural and Remote Communities initiatives. The initiatives that I work on, as Sarah just said, are really more geared toward folks, communities who are not attached to the North American electrical grid. That being said, Gil, if you are able to, or I'll put my email address in the chat, and if you want to send me a quick email just about which communities you're looking at, and maybe just like a reminder, Jillian, this was at this conversation, and this was about energy storage. I can try to do some digging on my end with SREPs, or there might be one other program that could be applicable, and just maybe connecting you with folks. I'm not sure, Sarah, right now if SREPs is open at the moment. So SREPs is the Smart Renewables and Electrification Pathways Program. I don't work on this, but I do have colleagues who do. I don't want to give any misinformation about it, but I'm happy to connect you, Gil, with somebody who would have more clear answers.
That would be great. I know we've gotten about 70% of our funding for this project to date from NRCan. I know we didn't qualify for the full funding due to one of the eligibility criteria. I just can't remember off the top of my head, but I know it doesn't, that program doesn't include for storage. So we're just trying to figure out how we can add to this program to include the storage to take care of blackouts.
Is there currently like a diesel generator on reserve to support in blackouts, or is there nothing for backup, Gil?
At the moment, we don't have anything for backup for residential. We've been doing our own source revenues to provide propane powered generators for our community buildings and our critical infrastructure at this time. And we completed phase one about half the buildings last year. We're working to complete phase two right now. Two of the generators are just being delivered to site to be installed. One, we need to upgrade one because we're adding to a building and need a new upsized generator. And the large generator for our lodge and cabins kind of thing is, it won't be shipped till April. So, but it is ordered kind of thing. So. But no, we don't have any diesel generation here in the community. It's all going to be on propane for environmental considerations and cost considerations.
Right. And as far as individual homes go, do they have backup generator or just wood burning stove?
Yeah, we have no generators for our homes at this time. That's why we're trying to add the battery storage component to the residential solar power project.
Right. Well, yeah, just thinking aloud here, you know, if in absence of battery storage, if the other thought, like you said, is propane for environmental reasons, but we still know there's, you know, GHG emissions associated with propane, that's always a quick, maybe back of the napkin stat that's important for NRCan to know in terms of potential funding opportunities, right?
Correct. Gotcha. Yeah, the other thing is just costs and operations and maintenance of the propane is quite a bit. It's significantly less than on diesel generation. So
Mhm. And I just want to say that thanks, Sarah. She offered that solar battery storage is eligible under, they call it the BC Indigenous Clean Energy Initiative, so the New Relationship Trust Fund, but it would need further project specifics to confirm for certain. So that's very helpful. Thank you, Sarah. And then Katia also offered that for the Ministry of Indigenous Relations administers the Clean Energy Business Fund. Again, for up to $500,000, that's also eligible. Thank you. And I see Samantha's hand up there.
Oh, hi, my name is Samantha West and I'm the Tll Nation Housing Manager. And I noticed like we're talking about the generator systems and ours is a diesel powered generator that powers the whole community, but we only have a small source of generator that sometimes it kind of shuts off every now and then because we have more community members coming home and our community is growing now. And I was just wondering, like, how do I go about applying for a bigger generator system for a growing community?
Thanks for that question, Samantha. So for Tll Lake, that's what this is great conversation. So instead of, diesel generator, that's what we're trying to talk through. Are there better technological options, right? So when Gil's asking about battery storage doesn't emit the, tons of CO2 like a diesel generator would. And so right now, there are opportunities for funding for that backup power that's not diesel, that's not a diesel generator. But because this is, it's not new technology, but it's new technology to integrate to the grid or a microgrid in BC. It's not a simple solution, but I really think through this group, we can, help figure it out together. And I would encourage you to follow up with Selena and Sarah with the New Relationship Trust, because I think and Shaheen, that's your best bet there to start understanding what the solution could be.
Okay, thank you about that.
Thank you, Samantha. And I noticed that Sarah also posted the email address there for you as well. Okay, well, I'm looking at the time there, Sarah, and we're at 2:51.
Yeah, it looks good. If there's that, Joe had asked, he wants to hear from the, remote First Nations that are here, what their community goals are. By all means, if there's any other questions, comments from either the presenters or the participants. Yeah, we got a few more minutes or can wrap up early.
Hello.
Hi, Cliff.
Hi. Yeah, this is Cliff Chalitza, Upper Nicola Band. I'm the housing manager here. Yes, it's something that I'm going through our community here of the consumption that they use. We have electrical and all that. We're in an interior here, but because we're assessing everybody's home and we should be finished assessing them by April. But the next step is I would like to, because what we're noticing is that the consumption that they use for everything that they have is dramatically high, and then trying to lower it. And I had a feller come in here after he came from one of the island communities, and he kind of gave me rent on how this would work. And as I'm going through the community, and the older homes, their main source of heating is baseboard heater. And so then the secondary is wood. Well, some of them didn't have wood because we had to get wood stoves for them because of the power outage that happens frequently now than it ever did. And so one of the things that I'm trying to look at are because when I said on how many units we have half of our units are elderly, and it's going to be even higher within the next 3-4 years. It's going to be like a lot. And so they're getting up there, so we want to do something that they don't have to be packing wood, having that baseboard heater on, because that's where their consumption is really it's where their pension goes, I guess. And it's dramatically high, and I can't see how they can manage to community, because I'm doing an assessment with them right now, and they're all game for professionals, assessors, and whatever else that they could come and help us out. So I have their trust and their commitment, and this is a good opportunity for me to sit with Joe or somebody to go through this. And where do I start? I see Seth on here with BC Hydro. I worked with him a bit, so I'd just like to proceed on this avenue, so that I'm with my co-worker, then we could work with the community and get the ball rolling, because I have my community with me all the way on what we're doing, because we don't know where we're going to be years with funding. So this is the time I want to capture this opportunity with energy efficiency in our homes, because only way
Cliff, you're breaking up a little bit.
Oh, okay. I say,
Yeah, but I
they
saw Joe
Okay.
put in the chat that he wants to follow up with you, and I
Okay.
know that will be a good contact and for you to identify some next steps there. So I really appreciate the comments, and Joe, thank you for following up.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, you're breaking up a bit there, and we got one more hand up, Trisha.
Yeah, we have Leo. Go ahead, Leo.
Yeah, thank you. Just want to talk a bit more about my comment earlier about the energy efficiency for houses. Helsec will be starting on a project to address a number of 100 houses to start in our community. Given the last 2 years of extreme weather conditions, winter and summer, with the heat and the cold. We've got a letter of offer to do 100 houses, and I believe a number of First Nations through CMHC have received a similar offer. And we will start. We're going to receive funding next fiscal April, and we'll have a 3-year period to do this, undertake this. It's going to be quite the challenge, but what I'd like to do is reach out to CMHC and ask them if they could share the other communities' contact information and bring them on a journey and work collaboratively with some ideas. And that's why I want to talk to Diva and Joe. We're already working with Ecotrust. Phil has been working with us for the last few years. And I believe Coefficient might have done the energy advisor assessment reports for our houses, for our heat pump project or program. It's ongoing. But yeah, just for the other person's comments about dealing with houses for the extreme heat and extreme cold in the winter. we got to do something. We got to take on, we got to undertake, even when we do renovations, we got to undertake outsolation. That's what I'm going to be proposing that going forward. We're not just going to rip off the exterior cladding and put on new cladding. We got to outsolate the house. We got to tighten up the house. But at the same time, I've seen it in the past where the tighter we make our houses, the more problems that are impacted on the house with the retaining of the high moisture, thus resulting in health and safety. And I don't want to say the word, and every time throws out there, but health and safety issues. So we've got to educate people whenever we undertake this type of work. We're doing this for them. We're trying to reduce their, even though we're putting these heat pumps in, we're reducing their hydro bills. We could reduce them even more by using them less frequency in the winter and not have to rely on them constantly in the summertime for cooling, AC. You know, that's what they're doing. Hey, some of them are seeing marginal decreases in the hydro bill, but that's one of the factors is constant use of the AC units from the heat pumps during the summer. So I'm thinking about putting this out to the public, BC or maybe Canada, some sort of information, resource, application. Like we had pre-COVID, we had BCIT come in for about 3.5, 4 days of training for Step Code 2. So we're familiar with that application, but we haven't really built ourselves. We've had general management, we had another contractor come in and do the work on our 2 sixplexes for BC social housing. But some of us got some experience on it. But I think we need another refresher on that to bring that training in when we undertake exterior renovation work. Outsolation on the roof as well. We've just been doing that. We made investments on ourselves. We have our own metal roofing machine, getting rid of asphalt shingles that fly around with the extreme wind conditions that we're experiencing here. So all the houses eventually will be metal roofing. I want to invest in the loose cellulose fiber machine, for blower machine, for blowing in, adding insulation, extra insulation in the attic spaces. But it could be a wet or a dry application. You use it for new construction, and you get better energy efficiency with a wet application as opposed to of the cellulose fiber, as opposed to battened insulation. So some of the things that's on my mind. So just wanted to share that with the group. That's why I want to reach out to Joe and Diva and continue working with Ecotrust. So, but if we could have something on that conversation for next Zoom, you know, that'd be great. This should start this ball moving forward. I'm also on the First Nations Home Energy Save Advisory group, technical group, and I'll be bringing that up in our meeting later, early next year. So, just wanted to share that.
Excellent. Crystal, what do you think of a future Zoom info session?
Yeah, I think it definitely would benefit, and having the right people in the room to, you know, have a handful of the nations, you know, increasing their capacity and knowledge when it comes to demand side management, and having your experience, Leo, would be great. Just to kind of start opening the minds of the people, and also providing that partnership and collaboration in a space like this is definitely a focus. So I think that would be an amazing topic. Thank you for your knowledge and your input.
Wonderful. Yes, thank you, Crystal. And yeah, so this concludes the info session today. We'd like to thank each and every one of you for attending, and we hope that you found this helpful and that you made new connections. Thank you for your contributions and sharing all the wonderful links and resources. We do this work so that our future generations can thrive. So I'm really looking forward to keeping the discussion going. And like Crystal said, with the right people in the room, building collaborative partnerships. I will now pass it off to Sarah to see if you have anything to add before closing the session. But again, heads up, Gaussiam. Thank you, everybody.
No, I would rather leave it with your words, Tricia. Great job. Thank you, everyone.
Okay. Stay safe, everyone.
Jessica.
Okay, it was Sam.